Hi, I'm ELENA GEORGIou. Welcome to the Global News and another episode of the Trauma Recovery Series. And today it's the sixth episode, and the topic is feeling safe. And I want to welcome Nicole and David. Hello, Nicole.
Hi, Elena. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. I love your background tonight.
Yes. And yep. And I'm feeling safe because it's like somebody's holding me in their hands.
And all
Hello,
the fairy
David.
lights around you.
Yeah, it's nice. And Nicole is going to tell us about the parents and the children, how they can respond in this.
Sure. So when I began my healing journey and I started working on myself because, at some point you get and you just realize that your life is just not working out in the best possible way for you. And I began to start searching and asking questions and falling, and I say falling upon because that was literally what was happening. And looking back now, I realize is that when you're ready to hear something, when you're ready to grow and to change, the universe brings in the information you need to know. And you sort of kind of just stumble on it in that way. But suddenly I started realizing, and all the messages I was hearing, is that, a lot of what was causing my difficulties in my today life had actually come from my childhood experiences. And that really, really spoke to me because I knew I didn't have the best childhood experience. I knew I wasn't a happy child. And so I began to think, well, if it's all coming from childhood, why don't we today give our children the best childhood experience that we can possibly give them? And so that's what I would love to talk to you about tonight, is that how we can help our children feel safe. And so one of the best ways is to give a child a routine so that it's always knowing what it's going to expect from its day. Now, you don't have to be rigid in that routine because sometimes you cannot keep to your daily program. And then you would talk to your child about it and say, yes, today, normally at this time, we would be doing this and this, but we have an exception today. And you can talk them through it, not just suddenly say, oh, yeah, no, we're not doing that. We're going off over here to do this today. And then that's a surprise for the child. And, like as a nursery school teacher, a lot of the parents would come and say to me, oh, my child, how do I help him transition from staying at home and going off to coming to school every day? So for any new experiences, whether it's taking your child to the doctor, and that might feel scary because he doesn't want his arm pricked by needles and things like that, or going off to the dentist, or maybe having to spend a weekend with grandma and grandma. We're not used to doing that yet. So one of the best ways that I always found is that to role play that new experience at home. So you would set up the situation. So for in this example, maybe that your child is getting ready for a new school year or going off to school for the first time. So you could make a small part of your living room like to be the little classroom, little table, little chair, and the child can get an idea and a feeling of what the classroom is going to look like. And then you can be the teacher and you can go to the door and you can welcome the child in and you can talk to him or her and explain what the day is going to be like and welcome him in and get it to sit at the desk and everything else. And as you're doing it, then you get the child maybe to be the teacher, so that when it goes off to school, it's not scary and unknown. It's something that we've played and we've had fun with at home, and it's now something familiar to me. And this will go a long way in helping a child feel safe and secure in different unknown environments for it, because we might know what school is. We've been through it. We've seen many other children go off to school, but a child going off to school for the first time has no idea what school is and doesn't know what to expect. And all of a sudden, that safety that it's known as mom or dad takes it off to school and is just going to leave them there and go home again. And that is scary and frightening. So play with it, have fun with it, change the different roles, you know, get a brother or a sister or a grandma or somebody else of the family, a friend, to be the mom dropping the child off at school, and just make it a fun experience for the child. And you can do the same, going to the doctor, going to the dentist, we're going off to grandma, what would we need? We would need our bag and our this, and we would pack, and off we would go, and, you know, and help the child familiarize the child more with what it's going to go and do. So a large part of, you know, and with older children as well, I have many of my clients come to me and tell me and say to me, oh, my child is just, it covers up, it lies, and it's telling me all these stories, and I don't know what to do about it. I've told it it's bad to lie and it's bad to this, and, you know, but it keeps carrying on with this. So one of the things that I really recommend that every family does is that create a family circle of trust and let the child know. So when I first came up with this idea and presented it to my children, we were going through a rather unfortunate incident with a nanny at home, and I needed my children to tell me the truth, but she had blackmailed them that if they kept lying for her, then she would give them extra screen time. And I needed to break that barrier because the children were being loyal to somebody that I had chosen to look after them. And they had trusted me as their mom that I would provide the proper person, a trustworthy person to look after them. Unfortunately, I kind of failed on that one, but we live and learn. So I went to them and I said to my sons, and I said, oh, you know, I want to create a family circle of trust. And they go, well, what's that, Mom? I said, well, this is a circle where we can tell each other honestly and truthfully things that are going on in our life, and that there's going to be no punishments, consequences. Nobody's going to get upset. Nobody's allowed to shout. And what we're going to do then is try and find solutions to what's going on and how we could perhaps do things differently next time. So they looked at me rather weird and strange, and they go, okay, Mom. So I said, well, I would like to start. I said, because I have a confession to make. And then they go, well, what's your confession? I said, well, you know, last night I got up in the middle of the night and I was really, really hungry. And I went down to the fridge, and unfortunately, the only thing I really, really wanted to eat were your chocolate bars. So I have to tell you, and I'm very, very sorry, but I ate your chocolate bars last night because I needed to find a way that I had done something wrong first. So now they don't know what to do. You know, they love the chocolate bars in the fridge. It's each got their names on, so no one else can eat them. And so they go, oh, okay. So I said, well, can you help me decide what I could possibly have done differently for next time? Because I feel so guilty now. I feel absolutely terrible. I feel like I'm the worst mom in the world. I ate my children's chocolate, you know. And so they said to me, well, you know, maybe you could have had a biscuit, or maybe you could do this, or maybe eat the chocolate bar, but maybe you could buy us a new one. And so we talked and we brainstormed ideas, and we came up with a lovely idea. And I said, okay, so that's what I'm going to be doing next time. And so I said, well, since we're here and we're in this beautiful family circle of trust, is there anything that perhaps you would like to share? And slowly, slowly, it came out what the nanny had done and the nanny had said. And they had been carrying it for a week inside of their little hearts, not wanting to tell me because they didn't want to lose the extra screen time. So this became an invaluable tool. And even like a week after this, I went to them. My oldest son came to me and said, Mom, could we have one of those family circle of trust? And I said, of course, you know, what's going on? He said, well, you remember last year when the nanny was taking us to the swimming pool in the taxi, and I would give the nanny taxi money so that she could take them up to the swimming pool lessons. And I guess I remember that. And he says, well, we weren't going off to the swimming pool. She was taking us down the road here. We would bring us home, and instead of going in the taxi, she would use the taxi money and she would go and buy us donuts, and we would all get donuts to eat. And he had been carrying this a year in his heart. And it was really, really upsetting for him. And it was such freedom for him to be able to tell me in a safe space. And these are small things, little things and that. But, it's been now, it's been about 7 or 8 years now since we've had our family circle of trust. And today he's not an 8-year-old, 9-year-old boy coming to tell me about the nanny buying them donuts when she knows I don't want them to eat donuts. Now he's coming and he's calling upon the family circle of trust, and he's telling me, Mom, my friend started smoking and that was scary for me, and so we would talk about it, and it provided that space for him to be able to come and tell us things that it was scaring him, because that was scary for him, that, he knew that don't smoke, it causes cancer, it causes this, it causes that. And he's like 13, and now his friend is smoking, and that was scary. He had never seen a 13-year-old smoke before. And of course, 6 months down the line, we have another family circle of trust, and he came to tell me that he actually tried the cigarette from his friend, and it provided a wonderful open channel of communication for them to come and tell me anything that they want. And he knows that he'll never ever get in trouble, and that it's a space that we can talk about it, because children interpret things very, very differently to adults. And maybe, they're not telling us something small because they think it's huge. They don't know how to discern between what's a small thing and what's a big thing. So in doing this, that was what really, really stood out for me. I was absolutely amazed what they were calling the family circle of trust for. I mean, I did it for these kind of things, tried smoking, or my friend did this, or I saw that, or, I don't know how to deal with this particular issue in my life. That's what that was my intention, that when these sort of things came in, that they would be able to come and tell me. But especially when they were small, it was amazing what they were hiding from me, because they were scared to tell me, because they were scared of getting into trouble, or they thought that was the most terrible thing in the world, and it was hardly anything. And now there are some children who are going through really, really frightening things and not feeling safe to be able to go and tell somebody. And it's that same thing of discernment. They don't know that if somebody touches me in a wrong way, or somebody says something to me that makes me feel uncomfortable, it's okay for me to tell them, because the person doing that to them is putting the fear in, just like the nanny put the fear in the children that she would take away their screen time, or they wouldn't get extra screen time if they told me. And people could be doing this to your children. So it's really, really important to create a safe space. Now, it is not for every little thing, and you can talk to them about it, but it's for every little thing that they feel scared to come and tell you. And they can come and tell you. I mean, of course, a lot of parents say to me, oh, they'll just use that, they'll abuse that. And yes, they do, because they're children. But that's because you're the adult, is when you can say, all right, so we said that you would make your bed every day, and now you come to tell me in the family, and that if you didn't make your bed every day, then you'd have to do an extra household chore, you'd have to clean your whole room up, or whatever it's going on in your house. And but then they go and they come and tell you, oh, Mom, I need a family circle of trust to tell you that I didn't make my bed today. Okay, and that's what children do, right? That they don't want to be making their bed every day. They don't want to be doing what they have to do. They don't want to be studying. They do want some extra screen time. They just want, they don't have that, why they should be doing it all yet. So they will be doing that. But then when it comes up once or twice, that is when you go, all right, so we've got the family circle of trust, and I'm glad that you came and told me on your own, and I didn't have to walk in and find your room in a big mess again. I said, because, that's one of my triggers. And when I walk in and find your room in a big mess, and we've agreed that you're going to tidy it up and make your bed, then I get angry, So I'm glad you've come to tell me, but let's see how we can change that now. All right, this is the family circle of trust. However, we have said that if you do not do it, this is the consequence. So now you get a choice. You either have the consequence or you make your bed. It's up to you. And you don't let them get away with little things like that. They will try. Of course they will try. So anyway, that is really, really important. And I think it's one of the, when I start working with parents, it's one of the first things I get them to create within their family. All right. And then we also have to look at our language when we are disciplining our children, because a lot of parents out there are disciplining their children through fear. So they're getting threatened, they will get shouted at, and then they say, oh, my child's been really well behaved and he's listening and he's doing everything he has to do. But is the child doing it because he understands the value in behaving well, making good choices for himself? Or is he doing it because, once again, he's in fear of being shouted at, fear of being punished? I was working with parents who, when I started working with them, they have a young son. He was 10, 11 years old. And they both parents work very, really hard every day. And this little boy, because of his own insecurities, because they were very, very strict with him, and they would put the fear in him to try and control his behavior, because this is the difference between raising children, accepting them for who they are, trying to empower them to be their best selves, and then trying to control them, for them to be what we feel that they should be, for them to act and behave in ways that the parents think they should act and behave. And his parents were definitely in the controlling mode. And, he would arrange a play date with a friend, and then maybe the school would phone and tell the parents, oh, he did this and this and this at school. And the parents would go, right, you're punished, grounded, no play date with your friend, and you have to sit in your room alone. And he would be left until one of the parents came back from work, in the house alone in his room. His brother was there, older brother was there, but he was not allowed out the room until the parents came home. And this is, his behavior just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And that is when they came to me, because their school was phoning him nearly every day. And this way of parenting wasn't working, because the child was in fear all the time. Fear that if I do this wrong, and he's got no judgment. He doesn't, why is this so bad? Why is this wrong? He just reacted as a child reacted. There was no discussion, no conversation with him, no walking him through it. Let's see what you chose this time. How would you choose differently? What would the different result bring? So that he can start to think and learn and make decisions for himself. And he was just like put in his room. Now, I don't, know that, if a prisoner in prison, the top punishment is to put him in confinement. And this is what they were doing to their little boy, but they're not realizing. They're thinking that they're being good parents by controlling their children. But it has the opposite result, because then the child is forever in fear. And a child that lives in fear has to go on the defense to protect himself. And that is when the child starts attacking. And that's when the behavior starts going really, really out of hand. If you want to know what's going on with your child, look at the behavior. Not to criticize it, not to judge it, not to try and control it, but get the messages. What is the need behind this behavior? And yes, so that's what I wanted to share with you tonight. I think that's the two most important things. One is to have a safe space in the house for the child to be able to come and tell you anything. And two is that as a parent, we realize that we don't control the children's behavior. We try and have conversations, talk with them, and try and get them to understand the value in what their choices are. I'm a strong believer in small consequences appropriate to what's going on. So this is how I've raised my children as well, is that children need to be disciplined. We need to put on safe limits, because a child that isn't disciplined and a child that hasn't got any limits does not feel safe. We are creating very insecure children this way. We need the limits, we need the discipline, because the child has to rely on us, that we're in charge, we're the adults, and we're going to be there to help and support and to bring them up in this world. So that's what I wanted to share on the parenting side.
So when you're saying, when you were speaking, Nicole, a phrase came to mind that I heard years ago, that what parents repress, their kids express. And so, yeah, and the behavior of the child was just, it's always a reflection on the parent, you know, but not as a form of guilt, but it's a form of, it's again, getting back to Elena, what we began talking about, that individuation. It's, I remember Jordan Peterson, you know, the very famous Canadian intellect. And he said most adults never really truly grow up until they have children, because they force you to pay attention to things that otherwise you would just walk by, you'd never notice. And that's really been, I know, the experience for me. There's you know, there's so many things that I had to figure out, and just I was horrified at my own reactions, my emotional tendencies to want to outburst in the presence of this little child. And then you have to kind of take a step back and go, you know, what the hell's wrong with me? Like, what's going on? And children force adults to mature. And it's actually not, it can be really an extraordinary journey for both child and adult, because you both get to grow up at the same time, right? Not just the child, but the adult, and all our infantile behavior that hasn't been matured yet. And now we have a very beautiful reason in the presence of our children.
And as Nicole was speaking, I just want to add up to what Nicole said. It reminded me a scene with my dad. It was his birthday, and you know, I was bought him a present, and I was running inside the house, you know, Dad, where are you? Like that. And I went to him and hugged him, and I was about to kiss him, but he just went like that. And I felt so, you know, I started crying, because I'm I'm very enthusiastic person, and I grab people and kiss them, and then, you know, I had that reaction, and I just stepped back and I said, I was crying. I said, why don't you want me to kiss you? I mean, it's the normal thing I do with strangers. I see strangers in the street and I run and kiss them. And he just couldn't speak. And then I understood that that's how he was brought up in his family. He wasn't brought up they didn't give him much love, and he wasn't used to that. And you know, and the groups, Nicole is saying the trust group for the family is good, so we can express ourselves also, what we have been through as children. If I was a child, I would definitely want to go back to my home now, if I had that opportunity, and sit with my parents and ask them what they have been through. I would want to know. And when I was researching to find for the generation of my family, you know, my aunts, they weren't speaking. They were afraid to tell me. But when I went back, I found an uncle and an aunt, and she opened up and told me what was happening. It was like a lineage in this family, and it was really bad when I found that. And even my mother, because she has dementia now, she doesn't even remember me. But even when she was well, she never told me these things. And it's good that parents and children must open up. And I'm living in this village 4 years now, and this was the village of my ancestors, and nobody told me. And I found an uncle in Facebook, and I didn't know him. I didn't know this uncle, and he said, "Hi, how are you doing?" And I said, "Hi, I'm fine." And he's my uncle, and he said, "I want you to come and meet your cousins because they're in your same age, and because you go out and they go out. I don't know, maybe you'll meet, and I don't want to have situations going on with you." And I met my cousins. They're in my age, and we go out together. And I didn't know that they were my cousins. I mean, parents and children must open up. And I had a conversation with my son a few days ago when we went out for coffee, and he was in pain and he was trying to open up to me. And I said, I want to tell you something I never told you. And I told him things that I never opened up to tell him. And he said, "Really, Mom? Did you feel like that?" I said, "Yeah, me too." And suddenly, he smiled. And that's the thing, that if we can show our pains and scars to our children, it's going to be more easy for them when they're dealing with certain things. They're going to be like, "Let's go to Mom, let's go to Dad, and tell him what happened to me." Even if it's too horrible, they will feel open up. And I think it's time for parents and children to have these meetings, as Nicole said, not only for, what's happening, or, I mean, the emotional side, but the real discussions. When I was your age, maybe you can share that your parents were neglecting you, they weren't paying attention. And now that I am a parent now, I don't want to be the way my parents are. I want to change this story, and I want you to participate in this and help me out. And with this, we're going to break the generational trauma that has been going on. And when I saw my son, and it helped him because he is having his issues. So by expressing myself and showing how much pain I've been through, he lit up and said, "Wow, you had the same like me." I said, "Yeah, I'm normal like you." And yeah, we should do that.
Definitely, yes. And I think that, I think one of the most important things to help a child feel safe is to just let there be unconditional love. Like it shouldn't ever be a matter that the child has to earn your love. That they should be able to rest in your love and to know that no matter what they do, that you are always going to be there, that you're always going to love them. And it's one of the messages that I tell my children often, and I think this is also very, very important, is that let children know that when they do something that you disapprove of, that it's not the child that you disapprove of, but it's the deed, the action, the choice that the child made. I always tell my children, I said, I don't like your choices right now. You are not your choices, and you can choose something different to do. You didn't have to choose that way of reacting. That lies on you. The choice was yours, and I'm letting you know that I don't like that choice right now, but I love you.
And you hug him and kiss him, because children needs a lot of hugs and kisses, and we also do. Yes, of course we do. But
yes, my oldest son, he's really, and the younger one too, but the older one can pick up if I'm upset or anything, and he'll often come and he says, "Mom, I think you need a hug right now." And then he'll give me a big hug, and he's right, I just need a hug right then. So, and that is because that's coming from me as a parent and his father as a parent, that we give them lots of hugs, you know, and, you know, as he's 14, 15-year-old now, he's trying different things, not coming home when he should be exactly on time and that, you know, and often before I will talk to him, I'll say to him, all right, I'm so happy you're home. You know, let me give you a hug. Hello. All right. Now let's talk about this time, you know, that you arrived. But before I get, you know, talk to him about that is to give him a hug and to start the conversation with that.
And
So that there's no feelings. He knows that